the whole premise, right? The original premise that they were going to do of Andor season 1 was going to be a Cassian K2 buddy cop all around the galaxy doing things, right? That was the premise that Gilroy was basically like, don't do this. Right. I can do so much better. Let's not do this. Bless him, but I wish we got one season of just K2 and Cassian going around. Give me one less season of Mando and Grogu going around, and give me one season of Cassian and K2 going around and getting into mischief and just doing things on behalf of the rebellion. But again, the time frame was so tight between the way they said they found K2 and then needing to get to Caffrine and then the Rogue One of it all. And so they just didn't have that luxury in the way they ended up writing this. But I'm telling you what, I don't think I would have liked to substitute all of Andor just to get that, but I wouldn't have minded getting a little bit more of that as a part of the series.
No, I completely agree because K2 brought the fun and he brought the funny. And I love that they even took the time in that episode to show them in their frat house, but the way they poked fun at each other and, it just felt so real and funny and engaging. It was nice to see. It was a moment of levity. It was a moment that we could smile and laugh after some very heavy scenes, It was kind of the perfect thing. And they play such a perfect buddy cop, though. I agree with you. I wish we could have seen more of just the two of them. They work so well together. Their comedy between the two of them. Andor plays the straight man, and K2 plays the goofy one, and they do it so well with that dry humor, that how he delivers everything. Just from the moment he woke up in episode 9, I laughed, and it wasn't even that funny of a comment, but I still laughed at it because it's Alan Tudyk, and he's a genius and definitely criminally underutilized, although what we did get was fantastic. So wow, props to them for bringing that character in again, getting Alan Tudyk back and delivering in a hilarious way. And even it was nice to see, though, also with that character that he even said, I've proven myself to you. I forget exactly the line that he says, but your doubts about my loyalty, hopefully your doubts of my loyalty have been satisfied or something like that, which was a genius line because they are still getting to know each other. And
and then Andor doesn't say anything and he's like, "You're welcome."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's funny to show that the droid has more human like emotions than Andor does. It's such a funny dichotomy between the two of those,
Well, I don't know if you guys have rewatched it, but there was a scene while the comms were still working, like K2 was in the ship waiting, like he was told to.
Yeah.
And they panned to him right as the comms stopped working, and he's got like his head in his hands, like he is just so bored. Yes. Right, and you can look at him. You're like, I'm like, he is showing droid bored right now. And then the comms stop working, and he snaps up. He's like, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe I can do something now." But I mean, again, his head was in his hands. He's like slouched in a weird way. And I was like, man, that man's bro's bored, right? And it just came through without him even saying anything. It was just masterful.
It was such a good delivery. So I think the only reason they couldn't use him more was because they ran out of budget and they couldn't do the CGI. Any more CGI, they're like, we better limit some of this. But oh man, so well done. So many great scenes. I don't want to miss anything. So Krennic. Oh, we do need to talk about Krennic for a minute. I know it's getting late, guys, but we're going to talk about Krennic here for a minute, and then we do got to bounce out of here pretty soon. But what a performance by Krennic. You could tell that he was just having fun. I mean,
when he put his finger on her, she had no idea he was going to do that.
And then she reacted. I thought it was some kind of device at first. I was like
he was almost stabbing her.
It was like a silencer. It was like it stunned her. It felt like or something. Yeah. She did such a good job acting.
She said he swept in there first, and the cape did whatever. She said, I got a chill for real. And she said, and then he's talking to me, and he's putting his finger on my head, and he's doing. She's like, you just got to let him work, right? When Ben Mendelsohn come in and do his thing, she's like, but so much of that was just her being caught completely off guard. Because she had no idea what he was going to do.
It's great ad-libbing, you know what I mean? That's great actor work, just working with your scene partner and just going with the flow and still being true to your character while doing it. So yeah, he just absolutely nailed it, and it works, I think, when we watch Rogue One next week, we're going to be doing live watch along next week, everybody. That's going to be fun to see that transition from this into Rogue One. And I feel like it's just going to seamlessly transition. The way he talked to everybody too was just like, I am on another level than all of you. You guys can join the ISB Death March. Is that what he said? Holy cow, what a dirtbag, but also like, wow, that was a brutal thing. The only con I'll say about that with her, Dedra, she had talked about being a scavenger, and it makes her story a little bit more tragic in some ways, but at the same time, I didn't feel like they necessarily explained that. That felt a little forced with her saying how much she knew just at the very end. I felt like maybe we should have got like a tease or two. Like some documents did come across your screen. Like even if they would have prefaced some of that, I think it would have had a little bit more weight to it. Now, I'm not saying it diminishes that at all. I just think, again, nitpicking. This is a nitpick. But it's tragic in the fact that she is a complete product of the Empire and how she had to scavenge to get to a place. And that's really the downfall of the Empire in a lot of ways is the lust for power. We talked about this a little bit last night, but the lust for power and to step on anyone around you to get to a more powerful position in the Empire was the goal. That is the goal. It's kind of the Sith way in a lot of ways, one to crave it and one to embody the power. So that's what they went off of. But it's tragic because she was raised by the Empire, did Empire things that they taught her to do. And then she ultimately, like Cyril, ends up getting tossed away like the Empire does. You've outrun your usefulness. And she had a point. If they would have kept her on, maybe, and Dan, you were talking more about that last night, Dan, but maybe the Empire wouldn't have, the Death Star wouldn't have been destroyed, Well, and she would have found these holes.
She came across all this information and she told nobody about any of it. Right. So Krennic uses her as a fall girl, gal, whatever. And basically it's like, well, you're the rebel spy and blah, blah, blah. But in actuality, she came across all this stuff and she just kept her mouth shut, right? She's like, I'm going to focus on what I need to do. This makes me even more wanting to get Axis out of here. And I'm going to keep all the, and I kind of got the impression where she made like a conscious decision not to sell anyone out and say, hey, I heard about this and I shouldn't have, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe she should have been a little bit more forthcoming about that. But I think she kept thinking, on your point, I'm just going to make sure this problem goes away. I'm going to close down the problem. Then it doesn't matter what I know or don't know. I'm loyal to the Empire. And really, in the end, it was that loyalty that ended up screwing her over because, Krennic needed people to take the fall for ultimately what became problems that he should have protected against. And I think part of his helicopter, I'm so high above you and you're going to take care of this. And then the people underneath were trying, but really couldn't. And then he was like, well, I'm not going down. That's why he said to Bartgrass, he's like, I can't protect you. Right. It wasn't that he can't, it's that he chose not to.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and this is to me what gets back to the best part of Andor until it wasn't the best part, which is Dedril. And the fact that Dedra was Cyril, they were one and the same. They were both used and abused, I suppose, by the Empire. She in a different way because she didn't have parents or whatever. She did, but they weren't around at all. At least Cyril had a mom, but she was terrible. She was the Empire. I mean, she was the mother Empire. But how Cyril's end came to such a tragic end, how Dedra's end came to, finale came to such a tragic end. But they both had the same result. And that's why when they were together, you're like, we're rooting for you both, even though you're both terrible people. But they're both a product of being used and abused by the Empire and that system that they grew up in. So you also sympathize for them and you hope for the best. You hope that maybe they could turn. Maybe they could see the light at the end of the tunnel and get out. Maybe they could just have a victory and not just lose. Like when Dedra saw Luthen with the knife and, not making it, like you saw the terror on her face because she was trying to break every rule, and then she was going to solve it, and she was going to finally prove herself right for the 20th time, which would have then ultimately proven Cyril correct, and then it all fell apart again, you know, and now she's got to pay the price again. Now she's getting arrested, and she's answering to Partagaz, and then ultimately Krennic, and then boom, she's in Narkina Chicks, and has no memory, not even Cyril to fall back on for support.
Yeah,
he was the only person that she kind of had. Maybe she could put in her one phone call to Edie, and Edie would give her some support, but not really, because she wasn't very nice to Edie either. So you want to talk about a human who burned literally every bridge, but she was also a victim of sorts of the Empire. I think it's a dichotomy of good and evil. And when you chase and try and work for evil, you're eventually going to get burned. It's not going to work. You're going to get eaten. It's going to take over you, and it's going to destroy you ultimately in the end. And I think the Star Wars-ness of it, we root for the bad only enough to where we see it turn good, because Star Wars set that up with Darth Vader. And he was terrible, but then at the end he did the right thing. And so we're like, oh, people can have redemption. Right. Well, who doesn't want redemption? Star Wars is a story of redemption. And so to see Cyril and Dedra, not everybody deserves to be redeemed. Really, Cyril and Dedra didn't. Maybe Cyril more than Dedra, because when she did the torture thing, I was like, you know.
Yeah.
But even still, when they were together, and you have the rom-com soundtrack and the music, and you're like, they just need some happiness. They just need 5 minutes to be I don't know. And are you guys with me on this?
You wanted them to get away from the Empire, is what you really want. Sense. You wanted them to pack up and realize the error of their ways and then leave. And the most tragic part was the fact that neither of them got that. And even more tragic for Cyril, for the fact that he realized, and probably would have if he would have survived in that situation, but was robbed of the opportunity. And that was the gut punch for him. But I think Tony said it best too. He said everybody's the hero of their own story. And he that to me spoke to how he wrote all of these characters. And that is such a fantastic way to write characters that gives them so much more depth than what we thought we could see in a Star Wars show.
I mean,
and both of them wanted to be the best they could be at their jobs, right? Who doesn't want to be the best version of whatever you're working at? I mean, whether you like your job or not, I mean, generally speaking, you want to do the best job you can, right? You want to impress your superiors, you want to have advancement, you want to be professionally fulfilled. And I think they both really wanted that a lot. The problem is they chose professional fulfillment probably in an organization that wasn't the most positive, right? It didn't have the human rights track record, right? There were things that they had to do as a part of perfection, right? She was a perfectionist, right? You could make some arguments that she was too good at her job, right? And so this is not the best way that the Empire functioned, sadly, right? They function more on conniving and backstabbing, and one-upping and doing things. It was very Sithy, right? That was by design. That was what, Palpatine wanted. He wanted that. That's what he knew. Right, he didn't want kumbaya, corporate picnic on the Death Star. This was not in his grand plan. And I think what we saw here were two people trying to be fulfilled both professionally and personally, and I just don't think they really knew how to do that. So it didn't end well for either one of them. And you're right, we were rooting for them in the weirdest possible way. And even in the live stream, I think somebody asked, Kyle Solar, they're like, what do you think? People really identified with you. They were rooting for you and all that. And I think he said something like, as an actor, that's exactly what you want. You want to make an impression and you want it to resonate. And he was like, but these characters, I mean, thank you. I forget what he said, but it was funny. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just icky, right? Again, it's like, how do you find yourself somehow rooting for these people that are involved in the most maliciously horrible, things on a routine basis? I mean, she pressed a button and genocided a whole people. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, and then somehow we still felt a little bad for her when we see her in the prison or when we see her shaking in the room after the massacre.
Yeah,
because it clearly affected her, and then knowing that Cyril was in that crossfire, and then she was like a prisoner born into the Imperial prison, and she ended in an Imperial prison. It's like an eternity of torture. It's like she's just forever bound, and she tried to get out and on top, and she was on top for months and years. It's as much on top as she could be, but yeah, she was too good at it. The only way that she could have actually thrived is if she had left and actually been the spy that they all were trying to accuse her of.
Yeah.
She eventually got accused of being a spy, and she's selling all the details. It's like, Dedra, you should have just done it. You should have just gone with Cyril and like answered his questions, and you guys could have maybe worked it out. But
although it didn't work out for Lonnie, right? Lonnie took that path.
Lonnie did,
for years, right?
Very
he tried
true.
to be the best version of a double agent, and you could make a very strong argument that if it wasn't for Lonnie, we wouldn't have known anything about Project Stardust. I'm going to keep calling
That's
it
true.
that.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have known
that's fair,
anything
yeah.
about the rest of it. And what happened to Lonnie? Luthen kills him just on the spot. As soon as he mentioned Yavin, I'm like, oh, there ain't either one of them making it to Yavin.
That's what I said.
I mean, but you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't think there was any way that Dedra would have gotten to a better place. I definitely think prison was the worst option, right? I think I would have preferred to see her not survive, given the where she ended up. But where she ended up was poetically just, right? Just given how she operated this whole time. Just I did not expect it. I did not expect it.
Well, maybe she's somewhat satisfied because now she doesn't have the responsibility. Her only responsibility is following rules, like don't get out and step out of line, and just build your stupid little parts. You only got like another year before that thing blows up anyway, and these parts, the order's done. We're gonna have to build something else.
Yeah,
and then you'll build DS2, and maybe you'll get a visit from Vader at some point when he's mad at how slow you're.
Well, and she's definitely going to make Project Lead. I mean, let's be real. She's going to be the project leader at some point.
That's true.
But the crazy thing though is that she could still be alive. Like we don't know. The Empire is only around. She'll, as long as she doesn't get killed there, fried. As long as she doesn't get fried there, she could potentially show up again, which is crazy. I don't think they're ever going to do that, but I just think that is ironic in some ways.
She could show up in a Mandalorian and like Lieutenant Biscuits, right? In one of those Imperial re-education programs where she's bopping around eating lollipops on
yes. Oh no. Oh man.
Did you want to read Tamerkin's comment?
Yeah.
I love this right here.
Yeah, she said, if it wasn't for Dedra doing the scavenging, then Lonnie wouldn't have gotten the info to Luthen, so technically we can thank Dedra.
Wow.
So she is the ultimate spy.
She unwittingly was the best spy for the rebellion.
She was so good at what she did.
You have to thank Dedra for the plans. You're like, wow, I didn't even think of that. That's a great point.
Yeah, it comes full circle.
Full circle. We love circles here.
We do. We have multiple circles.
We do have multiple circles. And we could keep going in circles and keep talking about Andor Season 2. There are so many good things. We're going to say our last piece right now, and then we're going to have to bounce out of here for tonight. But don't worry, there's always more Stay on Target. And we'll definitely have Matt back as well, as long as he's willing to come back.
Absolutely.
That's the true testament.
Again for having me. It was great.
Of course. No, we love it. So any last thought, guys? I'm just going to leave it here. I know it's hard to wrap this up because we could talk for hours, and I would love to. But any last thoughts, guys? Matt, did you want to say anything else about this or anything else before we?
I saw something on X which I thought summed it up. So I'll end with this from me, and it was don't be sad that it's over, be happy that it existed and we got to see it, right? Which I think is a great sentiment as it relates to this series, because we know it's not going to be like this again. This is truly a once in a television lifetime that a series like this would exist. And as sad as I am that there isn't any to watch next week, I am super happy that it ended so well. So
That
Nice.
was very well said.
Absolutely.
Dan, you want to follow that up? Because I'm not sure we can.
All I wanted to say was I feel like, yes, this was a gift from a auteur, director, writer, crafter, musician. I didn't know he was a musician, but he is.
That was cool to find out.
And so I love that. I connect with that even more. And as a Star Wars fan, loving Andor is okay. It's okay if it's not your favorite. But to say that it's not Star Wars, I have an issue with, because clearly the writers and the directors and the people involved from top to bottom, you don't have to like the leadership that okayed it, but this guy, the fact that, again, he took his energy and his time and assembled this team to do this over the last 10 years of his life. Nobody has to devote 10 years of their life on one project, never, much less a Star Wars project, in the midst of, they were watching all of these flops year in, year out, after, before season 1 and then after season 1. Before season 1, actually, there was more successes other than Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. But then afterward, it's just been downhill, trash talking, hate. Nobody likes Star Wars. It's not going to ever come back. It's dead. And so they're trying to do the best they can in the midst of all that. He's probably editing it, seeing all the news. He's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if this thing's going to get shipped because Disney Plus is going to fold. Then to stick the course out and deliver this, and for us faithful few that were excited about it from season 1, to hold out and then to be rewarded by their hard work, and then the graciousness that I feel like they've shown for the fans and for the crew that worked on it, and for all of the actors to have had a good time doing it, that they were like all willing to come on live streams to talk about it and give up, like, what, a Solar, I think, or somebody was in like Australia. It was like it was Mon Mothma, Genevieve O'Reilly. It was like 3 a.m. in Australia. So it's like the fact that they're still sticking with it. It's not like they did it one and done, we're out. Like, they all put their heart and soul. It's a gift. So as a Star Wars fan, give Andor a try, and don't hate something if you haven't given it a fair shake. I think Andor is peak Star Wars, in my opinion, and it deserves all of the accolades that it gets, and I hope it wins all the awards, because it was worth the wait. And it's been fun.
And one amendment, I think, in the 10-year anniversary next year of Rogue One, I think there'll be some Andor on the big screen. Yes. I know they've mixed some of these episodes for theatrical presentation. Now, again, it would make for a very long something, right? Because, 3 episodes of this and then Rogue One. That's I certainly would give the time. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I do think something about this will have the pleasure of seeing again next year in a big way for Rogue One re-release. So I should amend my previous. We will see, I think, a little bit more here. They even alluded to it in the live stream, and Tony was like, I don't think he wanted. I think he did shut Diego Luna down a little bit in that live stream, because Diego started to meander in this direction.
Okay.
So I do hope that does happen for sure. But I agree wholeheartedly. There's some things about this that's more Star Wars than any of the Star Wars things that we've gotten here recently from a live action perspective. And so the comment that I hate the most is, okay, it's good sci-fi, but it's not Star Wars. I also have a problem with that as well, because there's parts of it that are quintessentially Star Wars. If your definition is must see a lightsaber, this is the only live action thing they've done so far that has had no lightsaber. They did a pretty good job with the Force, I'll say, a couple of times, right? But no lightsaber, right? So and for some people, they have a real problem with that. Yeah. But to say that it's not Star Wars because there's no lightsaber, I think for me is a little wrongheaded. But
yeah, and it ends the series finale truly is Rogue One. So, which has a red lightsaber in it. Yeah, in the best red lightsaber scene you've seen. So you could argue that, but
the whole Jeddah of it all. Again, I would argue that the Jeddah business in Rogue One is quintessentially Star Wars. It's emphatically what the Force is all about, and that's why I say I think people lose sight of this primarily because prequel because the prequels were so fixated on telling Jedi stories that it's hard now for people not to see 1 through 6 as a thing, right? And so if there isn't lightsabers, Force, Jedi, some of that stuff, then they have a mark taken away in the Star Wars of it all. I don't need it personally, but some people do. Some people really do.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And I
That's
feel
fair.
like to say that this isn't Star Wars does limit the scope of what Star Wars can be.
Mhm.
And I think is what one of my favorite parts of this is what I've been saying for a long time is, do every kind of genre in Star Wars. I think Star Wars is big enough for that and can expand the universe while giving us different flavors, give different takes for people who like different movies. It can all fit in Star Wars. That's how big the Star Wars galaxy is. And that's one of my favorite things that Andor did. It brought us a new interpretation of Star Wars, which does not make it anything less or any Star Wars less. It actually broadens the horizon of Star Wars and lets us explore different places within the Star Wars galaxy. So yeah, I agree. If you don't call it Star Wars, I think you're limiting Star Wars. I'm not saying you're wrong if it doesn't make you feel that same nostalgic feel. And I think it was designed not to make you feel that nostalgic feel, that it was actually designed to make you think of Star Wars in a new light, in a different way. And George kept trying to do that as well. So it really, in a lot of ways, I think continued on George Lucas's thoughts because he always wanted to make something different. He said it time and time again. He didn't want it to be a rinse and repeat. And I think that's part of what Disney Star Wars has fallen into their own problem with doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's feeling stale. So,
and I think if George Lucas had a Tony Gilroy in his back pocket, he'd be asking him a few questions on how to write these. George hated writing all those movies. I mean, at least the prequels and stuff. It was the hardest thing he ever did. He barely finished the dialogue and stuff. He had to have
used a little Gilroy in Attack of the Clones. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
The story was there, but how do we make these scenes really hit? It's like let's do better dialogue than that, or let's do less dialogue. Let's just get to direct those actors in a way that makes them like hit. When they just like with Solar or with Deidre just staring at each other. I heard them talking about that.
They were talking about him staring at people.
She said that Solar Cyril can like tell a story with his eyes without something like that. It was like, that's great acting.
Mm-hmm.
And so good.
He's an actor's director / writer. I mean, he knows how to give them great material and he knows how to tell a great story. Overall, he excelled in so many ways, not just in a Star Wars story, but also just in a series altogether. I mean, I would rank this highly with other fantastic TV shows that I've seen.
I want to read the whole book, the whole making of Andor.
Yes.
I want to read the whole story because he's given us all the pieces.
Yeah.
But I want to hear all of it. I really do, because I love listening when he said that these are the things that I Skyped in to talk about. And so there were moments that he's like, this has to be there. Or I love finding out when he's like, I'm fighting for that cupcake with Gorst.
Yes.
Or I'm fighting, like, they wanted to get rid of this and they wanted to get rid of that. I'm like, who are they? They need to leave.
Yeah, I want to know who those people are.
Stop they.
Get them out of here.
Yeah, because not everything that he does is gonna be perfect or hit, but like when he's cooking, let him cook.
The muffin,
yeah. Stop pulling all your imperial stuff.
Do you think?
And there was one other scene, I forget what it was. He was set on what he wanted to do, and the director was like, "Well, we want to take some other takes. We want to do it these other ways." And Gilroy said something like, "Well, you
was the who are you?
As you was it who? Oh, the who are you line.
Who are you?
What
he's like, you do all the extras. He's like, but I know which one I'm using.
Yeah.
So he told. That's what he told.
You take as many other takes as you want, but this.
He told Andor to get a good one.
Yeah.
He's like, you get a good one because I'm on the cutting room floor. That's what I'm using. So that's fascinating that he obviously made the final decision in the cutting room, but
that's so funny.
Process.
That's crazy. That's awesome in some ways that he knew exactly what he wanted and that it made the director and the characters or the actors themselves feel so bad that they wanted to give an out if it was too brutal.
And that one line, who are you, for one example, like set the internet on fire. It's still we're all processing that, like, Oh my
He was like,
goodness.
I'm naming the episode that.
Exactly. Sure was a nobody. Oh my goodness. Like
Not
Andor
only-
didn't even know who he was.
Not only is he going to say that line, that's going to be the title of the episode. It's going to be double down. Like,
Double down. He's like, you're going to know what I wanted it.
Yeah.
What were we saying, fact checker?
Oh, do you think we'll get a behind the scenes like we did with the volume
Oh.
and Mando and all of that? Like a deep dive
I hope
behind the
so.
scenes? Because that would be epic.
Yes, it would.
For all that they built and put into the sets and the locations.
Well,
I mean, it's just stunning.
What's going to
Yes.
happen is it's going to get put up for the Emmys. And when they do that, they put these for your considerations out where they put, depending on what Emmys it's nominated for, they'll make little vignettes that support why it should win.
Okay.
And they'll post those all on the website, and they'll be available publicly for a while because they make it, they're trying to get interest up and the people who vote and all that.
Yeah.
And then some of it makes it onto the physical media, but if we should be able to find that again, because I watched hours of behind the scenes when season 1 was up, and it was hidden away on a website for like 6 weeks, and then they took it all down. So we'll have to watch for it this year again, because it's going to be nominated.
Yes.
And then it's called FYC. They'll put up an externally facing website, and it'll be a whole bunch of interviews that they'll put together specifically to support winning these categories. And we'll be able to see it. And I bet it'll be amazing again, because it sure was for last season.
Wow. I didn't even
That
know any
is
of
so
that.
cool.
That's some inside baseball stuff there.
And that for a fan of
Yeah.
Andor, a fandor, like to see it win an Emmy would just be like, thank you.
For writing, I mean, again, I wanted to win for set design. I wanted to win for costuming. I wanted to win for special effects. But I would love for it to win for writing, directing, cinematography, the things that are so super hard to win for.
Yes.
Because I really think it deserves it, especially this
Mm-hmm.
season.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Now, if they package it as a movie, does it get into the Oscar nomination, or that's not possible because it was delivered as a TV show first?
Yeah,
I think it has to be exclusively released
a
as
cinematic
in the
release.
movies first, probably.
Yeah, I think that has to be a cinematic release.
Yeah.
But
I
Hey, they could
digress.
change the rules.
Hey, let's change the roles. We'll start with an Emmy, and we'll be very happy with that.
yeah, exactly. Oh man. Well, again, we could keep going forever, and we will, but not tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us, all you gonkers out there, and everybody who's watched. Let us know in the chat and also in the comments below what you guys thought of Andor season 2 as a whole and the series altogether. Did you guys like it? Do you rank it one of the top Disney Star Wars anything, I guess, or Star Wars in general? Where does it land for you and your favorites when it comes to Star Wars? Cool. Well, again, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us tonight. It was an honor and a privilege to have you on. You have some fantastic takes, and I love how you can eloquently put them as the Moff that you are. So I look forward to having you on again. So thank you again, Matt.
My privilege to be here. An absolute pleasure.